Hey guys, it's JP, and we are going to continue the series of exercises that athletes can easily incorporate at home. This time, we'll be going over simple ways to strengthen the abs with minimal equipment. The abdominal muscles, which make up part of the core, are important as you run. These muscles act to improve overall trunk stability. By improving core strength, this may help optimize force production from the legs. However, it is important to note that the core works dynamically. When you run, the core does not stay still, but rather it constantly moves. This is why I tend to incorporate dynamic core exercises that require rotational demands. Now, let's go over some core exercises that incorporate dynamic movements. The first exercise I will go over is the dead bug. This is a popular one seen in many training programs. This exercise challenges the core while the arms and legs are moving, which is also seen when you run. To do this, start in this position. Then, push the lower back into the ground. This will engage your core. Then, straighten out the opposite arm and leg. Remember that as you straighten out, this will challenge the core even more. You may end up compensating by letting the back arch, so remember to try to keep the back against the ground. Anyway, once in that position, you can return to starting position, then alternate between each side. I typically have the person initially performing this 3 to 4 times for 10 repetitions each side. To further challenge yourself with this one, you can incorporate cuff weights around the arms or legs, or you can just slow down the tempo. By simply slowing it down, you will find this exercise much more challenging. Now, the second exercise we will go over is the plank with straight leg raises. I love this variation for runners as it challenges the core while simultaneously engaging the legs. To do this one, start in a push-up plank position. In this position, try to keep the arms stacked under the shoulder to reduce stress on it as you do the movement. Also, try to engage the core as you prepare to do the movement. Then, you will lift one leg straight up. As you do this, try to move from the hips and not from the lower back. Also, try not to let the body lean excessively toward one side. Then, put the leg down and you can alternate between each side. In terms of how I prescribe this exercise, I typically start with 3 to 4 sets of 20 straight leg raises. Similar to the last exercise, to further challenge yourself, you can incorporate cuff weights on the legs or slow down the tempo of the exercise. The next exercise I will go over is the planks with shoulder taps. The last variation of the plank incorporated dynamic leg movement, but this one instead incorporates arm movement. While this is also a great exercise for the core, I'm going over this one specifically at this moment as it is a great precursor to the next exercise I will go over. Anyway, to do this, you will be in a push-up plank position just like the previous exercise. In this position, you will also make sure to keep your arms stacked under your shoulders. Also, engage the core and try to keep the back flat throughout the movement. A good cue is to try to imagine that you are balancing plates on your lower back. Anyway, once in position, you will lift one arm and tap the opposite shoulder. As you do this, try not to lean excessively to one side. Then, continue to alternate. Just like the last exercise, you can initially perform 3 to 4 sets of 20 shoulder taps and further challenge yourself through changing the tempo of the exercise. The last one I will go over in this video is the tap and twist. This one is a progression of the plank with shoulder taps. Again, I like to incorporate these kinds of exercises as the core does not stay still but rather constantly rotates as you run. To do this one, start in a push-up plank position. Then, lift one hand toward the ceiling. As you do this, try not to twist from the feet. The reason I say this is to maximize rotation coming from the trunk and upper body. Then, you will tap the opposite shoulder, and then return to starting position. Then you can repeat this on the other side and continue alternating. For this exercise, I typically start with performing 5 tap and twists on each side 3 to 4 times. Then progress toward 10 on each side. Then you can slow down the tempo to make it even harder. And those are a few exercises that challenge the core, which can easily be incorporated at home. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and continue to be safe at this time. Also, feel free to ask any questions you may have. And as always, thank you for watching.